Hello, sports fans. Mauricio here. Well, we are here to insert rows from the sales details table to the sales summary table. And what we're going to do is insert into table name select from other table name, table 2. That's all we're doing. So you have to provide your list of columns, but there. I look stupid. Thank you. All right, so we're gonna insert data from one table into another, but we're gonna collapse the data before we insert it. So we have a select statement inside an insert statement. So wrap your head around that one. So that's pretty cool. So you can select data from one table and insert it into another table, and we'll do that when we do archives. Hey, select this old data and insert it into an archives table. But here we're collapsing the data and then saving it into another table. So we have a sales summary table. Today we have a sales details table. Today we're introducing the sales summary table. So the sales details table, if we have a successful Shopify site, will have thousands and thousands of line items. So, and that's where all the reports come from. But it's very easy to build other types of more managerial level, higher level reports if you don't have to do the summarization. So if you do the summarization already into the sales summary table, then it's much easier later to do further reporting. So I'm going to show this to you, but please wrap your mind around the concept. We're going to get some data, condense it, and stick it into another table. So we're summarizing data, putting it into another table. And ETL, extract, transform, load, will be using this. So go get this mountain of data and pound it into 25 rows, and then go put it in this other table. So these are the sales details. So I've got lots of sales details, and I want to condense them and put them into a sales summary table into one row. So I may have 20 items on my invoice in the sales detail table: sales ID 1, product 1, sales ID 1, product 4, sales ID 1, product 12. But I want to collapse that now just into sales ID 1, 10 products, how many units, etc. So let's take a look at this. So you see we got a lot of data. And let's just recover some basics. I want to see the rows that we're going to condense. So by the way, it only runs the code that you highlight. So if you're highlighting code, that's a very useful thing. So I've got sales ID 29. It's got 4 line items, a hat, and some soap, it looks like, some shampoo. Okay. Now let me just back up and let me back down to first gear. This local variable is very handy to store a value. So go get a value, the highest ID number, and then go stick it into a local variable, and then go use it in a select statement or an insert statement. And that's much better than hard coding it. So I can, I know the last invoice is 29, but if I wanted to make this code variant where I could use it over and over in different situations, over and over where the sales ID would change, then you would not hard code any dimension for the where statement, for example, you would put that in a variable. So you get you fill the variable every time and then you use it. So that's an important concept to make your code more portable and grow with your program. All right, so we can see we've got 4 line items. And so a select, just a select gets all the rows. Well, a select with a group by turns it into one row. Now that we have a variable here, we have to use it. Now that 14 has a variable, we have to use it. All right, so we can condense, and I guess the power of your imagination might go with me and say, hey, well, what if there was 20 products? So select the sales ID. That's our grouping variable, and so we're going to group the data and turn it into one row, and turn it into one row by sales ID. So we need the invoice state in our insert statement. We're going to need the invoice state for the sales summary. So sales summary is going to want to have invoice state. It's going to want to have sale ID. So it's going to want to have products, number of products. So that's number of SKUs, number of units, and total revenue, which we'll rename in this table to total sales. So this is all the dimension data that we need to summarize the data to what we want. But we also do need the customer ID. But if we put the customer ID up in the dimensions there with the select statement, we have to put it down here. But it's going to give us the same data. So let's go ahead and add that. So now we have the customer ID. And we need the invoice state. You could do that 2 ways. So we have 4 line items, and so we have to use a distinct instance of that invoice state. Sometimes it'll throw an error. Hey, I returned 4 values for invoice state. Well, that's because we have 4 line items. So we may have to use a select distinct invoice state. Here I chose max, just to get the highest one, which they're all the same, but let me show you another way to write this code. So if we brought invoice state up into the dimensions, and that means we have to put it in the group by. So the rule is all your dimensions in your select statement, these are the aggregating functions, the metrics. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the dimensions used to categorize these numbers. So whatever dimensions you have, and I recommend they're limited, because when you have too many, it may not give you the answer you want. So whatever dimension attributes you have in your select statement must go in the group by. So let's go ahead and run this. So it still works, invoice state. So I show a select max, or you could also do it this way. But now we have to select this data into the sales summaries table. So it's pretty much just be insert into sales summary, and then this code, or reasonable similarity of this code. So group the data in the sales details, and then insert it into the sales summary. So insert into. All right, let's talk about that. Insert into select from where adds more rows to an existing table. Insert into select from where adds more rows into a existing table. Pause and you say it. I hope. The other one is select star into from. That's create me a new table. Select star into from, or select this data into a table from the source data. Select star into a new table from the source data, that's creating a new table. That's not what we're doing. So insert into and then go get me more rows. That's what we're doing. So we could see I emptied out my sales summary tables. There's nothing there. So we're going to go ahead and put a summary for invoice 29 here when we run this query. So let's go ahead and run just this part. That's about the same query. I didn't use an alias at the end because we're not using that. We're putting this data into another table. So let's run this insert statement to put a row in the sales summary table. And so we still have to specify which columns. If you're not going to put a value into all the columns, then you have to specify which columns. And so you have to get these in order. So sales ID, customer, invoice date. And so they're all in order. So let's go ahead and run that. All right, so we have some message here. So let's go back to the sales table. And by the way, you can right click and execute that. I've been just closing it and you know, coming down and selecting the date again, but you can just right click and execute that there. All right, so I have data now, and but just the columns that we worked on. So this is not all the columns that we need. So what about all the rest of these columns, Featherman? So, and let me go ahead and delete that, and then we'll run the whole thing. But this part just puts in the values into those columns. So you saw that. Now, why can't you do this all in one step? You have to stop that mindset of let me do it all in one heroic query. I would say more rookie-oriented SQL developers try to do something heroic in one big query, and I would say move past that and do things step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So step 1 did an insert of values from the sales details table and put it in the summary table. Well, why don't you do all the rest of these columns? Well, that would have made this query very complex, and we don't like that. So we don't like one complex, awesome query. We like several steps. Each one is easy to debug. Each one is easy to understand. So go ahead and put those columns in, and then since we already have the invoice state, then let's go ahead and rip out of the invoice state the month, the name of the month, date name. By the way, I could have used date part here, just like date part year. You could date part month. So we're pulling all these columns out, and the days ago is now. I mean, we'll have a calculation later. I mean, how many days ago was this? So you can have some type of recency calculation. We're going to have groups. We're going to categorize how old these invoices are. But for now, we'll just put it in, you know, the sale happened today. And then the rest of this is we have 3 columns to categorize when the query occurred. So we can have hour, and so that's great if you want to look at, you know, I had how many sales at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, or 11 o'clock. But we use the rest of these to categorize the data. And let me make a separate video for that. So, all right, sport fans, we'll see you.